today we're going to be discussing mental health. So just to get it going, what's the first thing you think of when you hear the term mental health?
I think of like really doing a lot of self-care and understanding self. That's something that I would say comes to mind when I think of mental health. Like you gotta understand oneself and you gotta spend a lot of time doing self-care because like your mind can tend to be very cruel to you. So yeah, you gotta practice that self-care and keep self in check. That's what comes to mind when I think of mental health.
Right? Terry?
So for me, I think about the first thing that comes to my mind is misunderstanding. Like I feel like it's one of the most misunderstood things right now, like today in this day and age. And even though we've come a long way today, like, if we think we're in 2020 and we look back to like the 1950s, 60s and stuff, it was completely misunderstood. I still feel we have a long way to go to really understand like mental health issues, like what people are faced with, what they're dealing with. Because even if you look at like the science and stuff, it's one of the areas where people are like, is it really a science or those type of things, like to come to us. So it's like in more years, we'll have a better understanding of it. That's how I feel when I hear that word.
When I hear mental health, the first thing, and this is not how I used to think, this is not how I think now. But first thing, just growing up in the community and anything like that, the first thing I hear about mental health is like, oh, crazy. That's the initial thing that I hear. If someone is mentally unstable, oh, they're crazy or whatnot. But as time goes on, my view of definitely change on that. It's like more, and it goes aligned with what Troy was saying. Mental health is all about self-preservation, taking care of yourself, doing the right step to make sure that you're mentally stable. And everyone have their ebb and flows, and just understanding how to maintain your mental stability through it. So, I mean, my views of it have definitely changed, but initially, when I first heard about mental health, it was like, oh, crazy.
Yeah, and it's good that you brought that up, Terry, because, the key focus that we're going to have today with this discussion is in regards to the Black community. And I'm sure we can all agree that that is one of the misconceptions that's out there, that mental health means the person's crazy, right? So that's one of the things that I really want us to clarify, because mental health and mental illness, they're normally used interchangeably. However, they don't mean the same thing. So according to the CDC, the Centers for Disease and Control, mental health includes our emotional, psychological, and social well-being. So as Troy kind of talked about earlier, that self-care, taking care of, the holistic person. Now it affects how we think, how we act, and how we feel. It also determines how we handle stress, how we relate to others, and how we make healthy choices. So if your mental health isn't really, intact, stress, healthy decisions, you're not able to really make the best choices. And the key thing is that mental health is important at every stage of life, from childhood and adolescence all the way throughout adulthood, and even in geriatrics, because there's a lot of seniors who have issues with mental health as they get older in age. Now, mental disease, what do you think about that? Or mental illness, what do you think that actually means?
Well, I think
so just take one answer.
All right. Oh, I'll answer. I think it's the actual like the things that affect people. For example, like depression or I guess anxiety would fall under that as well. So that's what comes to mind. I might be
Yeah.
wrong, but yeah.
No. That's more so along the lines, because with mental illness, that's where you're looking at things that can, or conditions that can affect, people's thinking, their feeling, their mood, their behavior, such as depression, anxiety, bipolar disease, schizophrenia, things like that fall under that category of mental illness, right? And these conditions can be either occasional, it can be short term, it can be long lasting, and it can even be episodic, meaning it comes every now and then, right? I'm sure if many people, if you know someone who has depression, they might say, there are months where they're good, but then there are other months where
Yeah.
they go into a low state. So with mental illness, it can range in terms of how long a person suffers from whatever the condition is. So just overall, as a clarification, with mental health, it's a state of well-being that we all have. Just as how we all have physical health, we also have mental health. And I think that's one of the key things we have to grasp as a community, that mental health and physical health and emotional health, spiritual health, these things all are part of your overall makeup in terms of health. And it's important for us to give enough attention to each of these areas in order for us to, do well, right? Now, just for our audience and those listening, Troy recently completed a cinematic piece about his journey with mental health. And if you haven't checked it out as yet, I would recommend you click the link in the description, or Troy might put a little something
I don't know where it's
somewhere.
gonna be, but it's gonna be somewhere like around
Somewhere, right?
here.
So
Somewhere.
definitely check it out. You can pause this video, watch his, and then come back to join this discussion here. But Troy, I just want you to just share with us, why did you feel the need to create this piece?
Well, because the primary reason why I made that piece was because I didn't want people to feel like they were alone, and
Mm-hmm.
I wanted at least just to help one person kind of process their whole depression and stuff. And yeah, that was just my main goal for creating
Mhm.
it, just making sure that people know that they're not alone in their journey, and that
Mm-hmm.
that there's hope at the end of the tunnel. So yeah.
It's definitely it yeah, it definitely needs to change, and I like the point that you made earlier, Troy, that you made it so that someone don't feel like they're going through it themselves. And the problem within our Black community and why it needs to change, where there's more representation that no, Black people, we are having mental issues and stuff like that. We are struggling with it, just as the white community is. Is that when a Black person is experiencing it, they feel like I'm the only one going through it. And
Yeah.
that just escalated even more. How am I the only one going through it? Am I abnormal or anything like that? But no, in every community, every person goes through some sort of mental issue, right? So it's important to highlight that in the Black community as well. Not so yeah, you need to highlight that no, we're not we are experiencing struggles as well.
Yeah, and this just ties in perfectly with the next question I have. But why do you think mental health and mental illness are such taboo topics within the Black community? Why do you think that's the case?
So, so I think that the main thing that jumps out to me whenever I think of the taboo, is that I feel that we equate mental health issues with being weak,
Mm-hmm.
right? So like in a lot of in other communities, it's like, oh yeah, the men are welcome to be vulnerable and be weak and stuff. But in the Black community, because of history, things we've gone through and stuff, we always have to be, stand up for ourselves. We really do have to stand up for ourselves because no one is going to do it for us. That's a common thing, right? But it's like now, if you tell someone take care of your health, your physical health, go to the gym in the Black community, it's like, okay, yeah, go bulk up, go look good.
Yeah.
get strong, whatever, do what you need to do. But if you're like, if you go to a person and you're like, I'm having all these issues with my mental health and stuff, a lot of times it's viewed as this person is either crazy or they're not weak. Like just kind of man up, get over it, or like be a tough woman and get over it. Like you,
Mm-hmm.
like where you're working like two, three jobs to take care of your kids. Everyone is doing it, that kind of thing, rather than like, okay, be vulnerable, you know. So I feel like it's a taboo because it's seen as you're weak if you're not, if you're experiencing these issues, rather than you're vulnerable, you're a human being just like anyone else, right?
So I'm just gonna ask you guys, in closing, like, what are some of the things that you're doing for your mental health during this pandemic?
Honestly, it's really connecting with people. Not like big grandiose like connections, but you know, playing games with someone, watching a show and talking about it with others, like talking about sports with some, like just connecting with people, like doing things together with Trudy, like and with my son. It's just these type of things where you're like, oh, that's helping me, you know, because if I stop to think, and you do need to stop sometimes, but if I spend too long, knowing my personality, if I spend too long thinking, like it would let me feel like, whoa, like focus on all these problems, but rather instead I'm learning to connect with people and see a lot of value in that I never before did when there was no pandemic. So while we're locked down now, it's actually helping me to like, oh, how's this person doing? Let me do this with another person, like online or whatever, you know. So yeah.
And
Well, oh, go ahead.
no, I was just gonna say one of the things that I'm gonna expose myself here. One of the things that I've done, which have helped me actually, is I just cry. Before I used to hang on to that, right? Like, no,
Mm-hmm.
I'm a man, I'm not gonna cry or what.
Yeah.
But it happens that once I let that emotion go, I actually cry and stuff like that. It helped me and it relieves some of the stress that I have, some of the depression that I was going through. It helped me get through it just by crying out my emotions. So that's one of the things that I found really helpful.
And that's a powerful tool. Like, I don't know why people take it for granted, but your emotions, like if you have it built up, it's like taking like a pop with the cover on, like a carbonated drink, and shaking it, shaking it, shaking it, and thinking that, it's gonna be fine just like that. If you release the cover, nothing, it's just gonna be normal. No, it's gonna explode out if it's not released properly, right? So in the same way, like just taking the time to cry, like that's perfectly fine. And it goes to the point about, what we can do in our community. Normalize men having emotions, normalize women having emotions. Like it's perfectly fine. And I know in Troy's piece he talked about there was a point that stood out where he said he learned to cry silently so that the rest of the family wouldn't hear him, right? And it's just like, no, it's okay. It's fine to have a good cry, with your
Yeah, I
family
still didn't
members.
You
allow
get
Jasmine
triumph.
to
No.
hear me cry.
You what? You what, Terry?
No,
I didn't allow Jasmine to hear me cry. I'll go into
So
the
you're not
washroom or
crying.
something.
Yeah, you're in the washroom. You turn the shower on.
The shower.
Like, yeah, I was like, Terry, you okay? Yeah, I'm fine. I just got some soap in my eye. It's fine. There's some soap. It was just some soap. Yeah. So,
Okay, it's not crying in front of them, but at least letting them know you're experiencing something. That's the point, right? It's helpful,
yeah.
right? To let your loved ones know that it's okay. Like everyone experiences like these low moments, right? So if you can have that support there, it really does help. So I like that you shared that, Terry. That's definitely a good one.
I
Troy,
just
did
got
you want to
mine.
go?
Yeah. Mine, I do two things. The first one that I do is I think outside of myself. So, and this one is one of the ones that I do whenever my thoughts are starting to become a little bit too dark. And I have thoughts about, like, not right now because, like, I believe for the past, say, 2 years I've been all right, but
That's good.
yeah, but like whenever I would get like really really dark thoughts, I think outside myself. So that means I think about, Trudy, or I think about Tari or Terry, or, my nephew. Like I think about him, and I think
Mm-hmm.
about the bond that we have, like just as a family, and just imagining what life would look like without me, and
Yeah.
like when you think about that, when you think about it like that, and say let's say you don't have people in your life that you don't that you believe won't miss you, like your friends, like the people that you like, your second family. Like think about those
Yeah.
individuals. You never know what impact you have on someone else's life. You never know, you know if somebody wants to get to know you, but like they're just, I don't know, scared or whatever it is. Like you just don't know. So don't make such a final decision by taking your life, or doing something that could really really damage you. So that's one thing that I do. I think outside myself. And then the other thing that I do is I practice gratitude, like a lot of gratitude. I
That's
think
a
of all
good
the
Yeah,
one.
things
that's
that I'm thankful for, and it's things like, I'm thankful that I can walk. I'm thankful that I can see. I like the very basics, the things that most people are fortunate enough to have, like movement, like the ability to speak. Like when you are grateful for these small things, then you'll quickly realize, wow, like life is such a beautiful thing, and like I want to keep on living it. And then the last thing I do is I think about the future, and the future that I want to have.
Mm-hmm.
And every day I do something to create that future, to make that future. It may not be the future. I may not be living in that future right now, but I know every day that I wake up, every day that there's life in my body, I can do something to create that future that I want to have. And I know I'm going to get there because I'm working towards it every single day. So just give yourself that hope of, like, think of the best possible future that you can have for yourself, and then start working towards it,
Mm-hmm.
and just stick with it. And I'm currently on the journey, but I'm telling you that it's worth it. Like it's worth it. So yeah, that's
and
what I
it's funny how like every like so far the three of the answers we gave Trudy, it all has to do with sort of like being hopeful. Like
Yeah.
you gotta know that, like Terry started out by saying there is going to be an end to it, and Troy was talking about the future, looking ahead, and it's really important, that word hope, because when you're going through the dark place, it's sometimes the last thing on your mind. Hope, like, or being like optimistic or whatever those words are. It's sometimes the furthest thing from your mind, because all you're seeing is like the darkness and like no way out. But as both Terry and Troy have kind of said so far, it's like there is light at the end of the tunnel. You gotta believe that. You gotta believe that.
And that is why, therapy is such a powerful tool, because when you're going through that dark time, you're not thinking like, oh yeah, let me have hopeful thoughts, let me have positive energy. Like it's just dark, dark, dark. So just by going somewhere and meeting with someone, a professional who can give you these coping strategies, and that's really what therapy is. Like it gives you the tools to work through the dark times. It's not saying that it's just gonna fix it right now. It's saying when you do go through that dark period, now you have the tools. Where, as Troy was saying, thinking about the future, thinking about the people that would miss him and things like that. So when he goes through that dark time, he knows he can tap into those resources and pull himself out of it during the moment. So that's why it's a good thing I'm advocating for the whole therapy and things like that. So I'll just share my final what I'm doing for my mental health. And I think just taking care of my physical body, because when you're going through a pandemic, like, you don't want to be sick. You know what I'm saying? And sickness can really affect your mental health. It can truly affect your mental health. So just trying to eat nutritious and healthy foods, take my vitamins. Carrie doesn't believe in vitamins, but
No,
taking
I believe in
vitamins.
vitamins. Don't say that. Like,
All right, Carrie, we have to talk after the show. Don't go.
I
Don't
believe
go.
in vitamins. I believe in vitamins.
Anyway,
Okay.
but just as a summary for, you know, mental health during the pandemic: exercise, get fresh air, stay connected to, you know, your loved ones and people around you, take care of your body, and seek professional help when you start feeling like you're sick. So that's pretty much it. And, you know, if you or someone you know is experiencing mental illness, please seek professional help for them. We'll have some resources listed in the show description below. So thank you for joining us today, and we just hope you have a wonderful week and you take care of your mental health. Bye.
And don't forget to join us next week, where Trudy is going to be leading us on a discussion on IG Live. We're going to delve deeper into this. There's only so much we can do in this short. Yeah. So join us on IG Live next week, Thursday.
We need at least like 3 other participants to join, because IG just added that 4 people thing.
Oh, so, yeah.
Yeah, we gotta use that. So yeah, with that being said, bye-bye.
Bye.